America is a word that is very familiar to us today. As soon as we hear the name, we can say that it is one of the most powerful countries in the world. But there is a fascinating story behind the discovery of this country. In this video today, we will hear the story of the discovery of America. So do not skip the video and watch it completely. A dream beyond the horizon. In the late 15th century, Europe was restless and hungry for discovery. The great powers, Portugal and Spain, were racing to find sea routes to the riches of Asia. Spices, silk, and gold flowed into Europe from the east, but the journey overland was long, dangerous, and dominated by powerful empires. Among those captivated by the call of adventure was Christopher Columbus, a sailor from Genoa, Italy. Columbus believed the earth was round and smaller than most thought. He argued that by sailing west across the Atlantic Ocean, one could reach Asia faster than going around Africa. Most scholars and navigators dismissed the idea as madness. They warned of an endless ocean and certain death. But Columbus was undeterred. He studied ancient maps, read Marco Polo's writings, and listened to rumors of unknown islands beyond the western horizon. For nearly 10 years, he sought royal support. Portugal refused him first. Then he turned to Spain, where King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella were finishing the long Reconquista against the Moors. At first, they too rejected him, but his persistence and faith finally won them over. On April 17, 1492, the monarch signed the Capitulaciones de Santa Fe, granting Columbus noble titles and authority over any new lands he discovered. Preparing for the unknown, Columbus began gathering ships and men for his daring expedition. In the small port of Palos de la Frontera, he secured 3 vessels: the Niña, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. The Santa Maria was the flagship, large and sturdy. The Niña and Pinta were smaller caravels, light and swift. Around 90 men joined the crew, drawn from villages, prisons, and ports, some out of adventure, others out of desperation. They packed provisions for a year: salted meat, beans, water, wine, tools, weapons, and religious symbols. Columbus's navigational tools included compasses, sand glasses, and astrolabes, though none could predict the challenges ahead. At dawn on August 3rd, 1492, the 3 ships left Palos. Families lined the shore, waving and praying as the sails disappeared into the mist. Few believed they would ever return. Into the Atlantic. The small fleet first reached the Canary Islands, where they stopped for repairs. Then, on September 6, 1492, they left the last known land behind and sailed west into the great Atlantic, a sea no European had crossed. For days, the ocean was calm, the wind steady. But as weeks passed, unease grew among the sailors. The ocean seemed endless. Strange floating seaweed appeared. They had entered the mysterious Sargasso Sea. Compasses began to behave oddly, and fear of the unknown filled the men's hearts. Rumors of sea monsters and a flat edge of the world spread through the ships. When no land appeared, the men demanded to turn back. Columbus refused. He hid the true distances traveled to calm them. His faith in his mission never wavered. On October 10th, the crew's patience broke. They threatened mutiny. Columbus pleaded for 3 more days and promised that if no land appeared, they would return. He prayed through the night. Landfall at last. Just before dawn on October 12, 1492, a sailor named Rodrigo de Triana aboard the Pinta shouted, "Tiana, tierra!" meaning land, land. The cry echoed across the ships. Exhausted men wept with joy. Columbus fell to his knees, giving thanks to God. At sunrise, they saw a small green island shining in the light. Columbus named it San Salvador, meaning Holy Savior. Historians believe it was one of the Bahamas Islands. To Columbus, it was Asia, perhaps near Japan. To the native people who lived there, it was home. The islanders, known as the Taino, welcomed the strangers with kindness. They wore simple clothing and gold ornaments. They brought gifts of fruit, food, and parrots. Columbus described them as gentle and generous and noted the gold they wore. He took several of them aboard his ships as guides, not realizing that his arrival would change their world forever. Exploring the New World. Over the next months, Columbus explored more islands, Cuba and Hispaniola among them. The lands were lush and filled with unfamiliar plants and animals. He believed he was near the fabled lands of Asia. On Christmas Day, 1492, tragedy struck. The Santa Maria ran aground and was destroyed. Columbus used its timbers to build a small settlement on Hispaniola, which he called La Navidad, the first European outpost in the New World. He left about 40 men there to gather gold and explore further. Then, in January 1493, Columbus set sail for home with the Niña and Pinta. The voyage back was perilous. A fierce storm nearly sank the ships. But finally, in March 1493, Columbus reached Spain. He was greeted as a hero. King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella welcomed him with triumph. He presented exotic birds, fruits, and native islanders. To Europe, he was the man who had opened a new route to Asia, though he had, in truth, discovered a new world. The later voyages. Columbus would make 3 more voyages between 1493 and 1504, each revealing more of the vast lands across the ocean. His second voyage was a grand expedition, 17 ships carrying more than 1,000 men. The goal was colonization. But when Columbus returned to Hispaniola, he found La Navidad destroyed and his men killed. Conflict with the Taino had erupted. He founded a new settlement, Isabela, but disease, hunger, and rebellion plagued the colony. His third voyage in 1498 took him further south, where he sighted the coast of modern Venezuela, the first time he realized he had discovered a continent. Yet, he still believed he was near Asia. Reports of his harsh rule reached Spain, and in 1500 he was arrested and sent home in chains. Though the king and queen later freed him, his reputation was broken. Still, he persuaded them to allow one last voyage. In 1502, Columbus set out on his 4th and final expedition, seeking a strait to the Indian Ocean. He explored the coasts of Central America, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama. He endured shipwrecks, storms, and mutiny. Stranded in Jamaica for over a year, he returned home in 1504, weary and forgotten. The man and the myth. Columbus died in 1506, still believing he had reached Asia. He never realized he had revealed 2 vast continents, North and South America, to the European world. After his death, others followed his path, explorers like Amerigo Vespucci, who recognized that these were new lands, not Asia. His name, not Columbus's, would be used for the continents, America. Yet, Columbus's courage and ambition changed history forever. He linked two halves of the world that had been separated for millennia. His voyages opened the age of exploration, an era that would reshape trade, religion, and culture on a global scale. But his legacy is not without darkness. For the indigenous peoples of the Caribbean, his arrival marked the beginning of suffering, slavery, conquest, and disease that would wipe out entire populations. Columbus's story is both heroic and tragic, the triumph of discovery and the cost of empire. The world after Columbus. Columbus's discovery transformed human history. The Columbian Exchange, the transfer of plants, animals, people, and ideas between the Old and New worlds began. Europe received potatoes, tomatoes, maize, and tobacco. The Americas received horses, cattle, wheat, and devastating diseases. The flood of gold and silver from the New World enriched Spain and fueled Europe's rise to global dominance. Exploration and colonization expanded across the Atlantic, leading to the creation of empires and the birth of the modern world. The world's map was redrawn. Oceans became bridges, not barriers. Humanity had stepped into an age of global connection. The enduring legacy. Centuries later, Columbus remains a figure of controversy and fascination. To some, he is a visionary who defied fear and shaped history. To others, he is a symbol of conquest and colonization. Cities, countries, and holidays have been named after him, and others have been renamed to honor the indigenous peoples who suffered in his wake. Perhaps the truth lies in between. Columbus was a man of his time, flawed, ambitious, faithful, and relentless. His courage changed the course of the world, even if he could not control what followed. When the Niña, Pinta, and Santa Maria set sail in 1492, they carried not just men and supplies, but the dreams of an age that believed the world was waiting to be known. His discovery proved that beyond every horizon lies another world, and that humanity's desire to explore is endless. Epilogue. The morning of a new world. At dawn on October 12, 1492, as the sun rose over the shores of San Salvador, Columbus stood on the beach holding the royal banner of Spain. Around him, his men cheered and prayed. The Taíno people watched in wonder as these strangers planted a cross and a flag in the sand. Neither could have imagined what their meeting would bring. Centuries of exploration, conflict, and change. Columbus believed he had reached Asia. In truth, he had found a new world, a world that would transform every part of human life. His voyage remains a turning point in history, a moment when courage met the unknown and the world, quite literally, became larger.